Welcome to episode 5 of Revising the Script. Today we're looking at the opening page of a script called Sangre, written by Levi John Paulson. As always, we'll read through the script, talk about what's working, what's not working, and then we'll go about revising it. Okay. Interior apartment, Tokyo day. Light gleams through the living room of a beautiful high-rise apartment in metropolitan current-day Tokyo. The inside is a tasteful mix of both modern Asian and European decor. Books are haphazardly stacked, empty glasses here and there, but all in all nice and clean. We see the bedroom, small but cozy. In bed lays Valentina Baresi, a beautiful Italian girl, pale skin, jet black hair, big eyes, and a powerfully curvy body. She is, without equivocation, a knockout. She lay quiet as a gentle beam of sunlight slowly but surely envelops her silhouette beneath the covers, heating her. Extreme close-up eyes. Her eyes pop open, we can hear them click. She yawns long and hard. She sticks her arms out in a Y shape, so far that they knock against the headrest of her bed. She tosses and turns very fast, pulling her blanket all around so it crinkles up like a candy wrapper. Extreme close-up, mouth. She licks her lips and moves her mouth around, making all kinds of wet sounds you hear from a dry mouth rehydrating. She then stops. She buries her face in the bed, pressing it very hard. Then slowly but surely lifts her head up, exposing her eyes and just the tip of her nose. She looks out the window, seeing Tokyo in the sun. Good morning, day. Valentina's voice is sultry, raspy, and gentle, but with a substantial bite of Italian accent. So I think this opening page gives us a good opportunity to talk about where we begin our stories and what we want out of a beginning. I think the good thing about this first page is that it's clear that Paulson has a very specific vision of what he's going for. He's calling out specific details and really honing in on them. I think the con is, where are we going here? What's the story? A beginning like this is a bit of a red flag because this is the way a lot of student films and student scripts begin. It begins with their characters waking up in bed. That's a standard way most people begin the day, so it becomes a default way to open a story, but it's not necessarily a interesting or specific choice. And that's because beginnings need to be both specific and intentional. We want at least two things out of beginnings. We want to immediately start setting up elements that will pay off later, and we also want the beginning to be the best moment to start our story, and it needs to be significant. That doesn't mean the beginning needs to be of huge importance, but it does need to be significant to the character, significant to the story, in a way that lets the audience know that we, the writers, have chosen specifically this moment to open up the world. So that's my big question with this first page is why? Why are we starting on this girl waking up in bed? Where is the conflict here? 99% of scenes revolve around conflict. Now, there would be a way to approach this scene to make it just a transcendent moment of waking up from the deepest sleep this character has ever slept. And it could be this beautiful awakening, but I'm not sure that's what Paulson's going for. That's actually the difficulty of revising a scene like this, is because the point is not clear, it's difficult to know what elements to hold on to and hone in on, and what moments to discard. We can think of each scene in a script as its own short film with a mini beginning, middle, end. So what is the beginning, middle, end of this scene? It's a beautiful girl waking up in a beautiful apartment and seeing the Tokyo skyline. That's not much of a story. The why of the scene is not clear. If I were the editor of this movie and I would deliver the footage of this first scene, I would most likely cut the whole scene. And I would want to move to a scene where the conflict starts. For example, in the next scene in the script, Valentina is checking herself out in the mirror and she notices skid marks on her panties. That's immediately interesting because now we have conflict. She's looking at herself in the mirror, she's feeling beautiful and maybe a little vain, and then she discovers this blemish. And even though it's still minor conflict, how Valentina will handle that situation is enough to tell the audience a thing or two about this character. So if we're going to do a scene where a character is waking up in bed, assuming we're not going to delete it, we want it to illustrate something. A good example of this would be the opening of A Devil Wears Prada. Anne Hathaway's character is going through her morning routine of getting dressed and brushing her teeth, but the entire point of the sequence is to contrast her life with the life of all these women who work in the fashion industry, and how Anne Hathaway's character and these other anonymous fashion women could not be more different. They're at opposite ends of the spectrum. So what is this scene telling us? What is the point of it? I'm not totally sure. It seems to be just Valentina waking up in Tokyo. So even though I would most likely cut this whole scene because I'd rather just get to the conflict, I think we can revise this scene in a way where we just get it down really short and sweet and just do our best to have Valentina wake up and hopefully move on to beginning our story. Okay, so interior apartment, Tokyo day. Let's say, well, we're in the living room. So let's say apartment, living room, Tokyo day. Light gleams through the living room of a beautiful high-rise apartment building in metropolitan current-day Tokyo. Okay, what is this shot? Are we seeing both the living room and the skyline outside? Why don't we just do one thing at a time and stick to the description of the interior of the living room? So we want to think through the images these words are evoking in our mind. So the inside is a tasteful mix of both modern and European decor. That doesn't bring to mind a clear image, but I can take a guess at what the mix of the two look like, but I can't easily see it. I can see this, that's a detail. I can see this, that's a nice touch of this lived-in room. It's a nice and clean space, so let's keep that. So how about we try to write this in a way that is going to be easier to picture in our mind's eye. So let's say a modern, minimalist living room. Tall ceilings, framed art, and a white fur rug. So I'm not going to go into the Asian European decor, but hopefully the above paints a clearer picture. Let's say, aside from the empty wine glasses, where are they? Let's say on the coffee table. Let's go one further and try and hone in on some specific vision. We might as well be looking at a spread from Architectural Digest. So hopefully this gives us an image of a very clean space, and as Paulson mentioned, it's lived in with some empty glasses, but overall it's this elegant, clean space. Okay, we see the bedroom. We can just cut to bedroom. Small but cozy. I would say small and cozy. I feel like small spaces are usually cozy. If I was going to say but, I would probably say large but cozy. So we'll say small and cozy. In bed lays Valentina Baresi, a beautiful Italian girl. Okay, is she awake or asleep? So let's say in bed, sound asleep, is Valentina Baresi, a beautiful Italian girl. Let's give her an age. We can say late 20s. I think it's great to describe our characters, but I am wondering if she's in bed under the covers, assuming she's asleep. We're asking for a little much to be able to grok all of the big eyes and the curvy body and everything. Why don't we just focus on skin and hair? We can just say with alabaster skin and jet black hair. And I think we can just say beautiful Italian girl, and then with this alabaster skin and jet black hair, that should do it. I think that will explain that she's a knockout. We don't need to come out and say it. This type of line is a good example of how Paulson has a very specific idea in his head, but the con might be, again, what's the point? So she's laying there quiet, the sunlight slowly passes over her and starts to heat her up beneath the covers. That's going to be hard to photograph, hard to realize what's happening, unless the next line was she pulls the covers off and wipes sweat from her brow. We're not necessarily going to be clear that the sun is heating her up. So why don't we just have the sun wake her up? And I think we can actually condense this whole section down to one block of text. Having her eyes pop open and then hearing them click, that immediately made me think robot. That's a very specific thing to call out, to be able to hear an eye blink. You know, it's got to be dead quiet. That's the kind of detail that feels like it should carry some weight. And I don't think Valentine is a robot, so let's get rid of that. She yawns long and hard. This is a great learning opportunity. She sticks her arms out in a Y shape. Now, again, the pro of this is Paulson knows what he's going for. We can all picture this in our head. The issue is that it reads a little bit like a cold document. She sticks her arms out in a Y shape. We want to make our description more felt. You know, I think something along the lines of just a good hard stretch, or she stretches out, would communicate the same and would be less likely to make the reader trip over the description because of how clinical it's reading. Again, a detail I don't think we need, but props for specific vision. This is a good example of choosing our words carefully. A blanket crinkling up like a candy wrapper. So this is bringing to mind the kind of blankets that they give to disaster relief victims or refugees, those kind of thin, crinkly space blankets. If she's at home in bed, unless this is some kind of crazy designer blanket, it's probably not going to crinkle up like a candy wrapper. You know, that brings to mind a very specific sound and texture and feel. So I'm going to get rid of this too. But we can just have her twist up or something. So let's update and condense this. As the harsh morning light hits her face, Valentina squints her eyes open, stretches out, yawns, and rolls across the bed, twisting herself up in the sheets. Okay, so hopefully this short block is doing the same amount of work with less lifting and giving us a clearer image. So we can get rid of this now. Extreme close-up mouth. So again, very specific description, licking her lips, moving her mouth. The wet sounds you hear from a dry mouth rehydrating. I don't know that a dry mouth rehydrates unless you're drinking water. So, but everyone knows what it's like to wake up with a parched mouth. So why don't we just say that? She smacks her parched mouth. And then I think we can get rid of calling out extreme close-up mouth. We're going to see that mouth in our mind's eye. I don't know that the parched mouth is so important that we need an extreme close-up of it. Let's say she wants to rehydrate. So how about grabs a glass from her bedside table, but sees it's empty. Okay. I don't think we need her stopping. Again, more specifics, but why? What is she doing here? Also, beware using the same phrase twice in a page. I think we had another slowly but surely above that we got rid of. So is it really important that she slowly but surely lifts her head? Or is she just slowly lifting her head? Why is it slowly but surely? Let's just get rid of this whole paragraph. She looks out the window seeing Tokyo and the sun. What about Tokyo? How about she looks out the window seeing the Tokyo skyline? She looks out the window. We can just say at the Tokyo skyline. Let's talk about all this direction. So this feels like a little bit of over direction on the page in that I think we can just, people know what morning voice sounds like. And I think this is a little bit of over description. Imagine saying to an actor, you know, I want your voice cracking and raspy and sultry and raspy and gentle, but with a substantial bite of an Italian accent. You know, that's a lot of detail, which is good, but I think we're getting lost in the detail and it's getting a little confusing. So why don't we just say, she looks out the window at the Tokyo skyline and speaks with an unmistakable Italian accent. We can get rid of the parenthetical. And we can get rid of this last scene. Okay, so we got rid of a lot. And again, I would probably just get rid of this whole scene because why are we starting our story here? But assuming it's very important that we start with this character waking up, I would want to make more specific choices about what's going on. Maybe she's waking up with a hangover and she needs water. Maybe she doesn't recognize the room she's woken up in. Maybe she doesn't recognize the city she's woken up in. But for the sake of the demonstration, we'll just keep her waking up in Tokyo in what is assumed to be her bedroom. Okay. Interior apartment living room, Tokyo day. A modern minimalist living room, tall ceilings, framed art. We can take out living because we're saying living room above. Interior apartment living room, Tokyo day. A modern minimalist room, tall ceilings, framed art, and a white fur rug. Aside from the empty wine glasses on the coffee table, we might as well be looking at a spread from Architectural Digest. Bedroom, small and cozy. In bed, sound asleep, is Valentina Baresi, a beautiful Italian girl, late 20s, with alabaster skin and jet black hair. As the harsh morning light hits her face, Valentina squints her eyes open, stretches out, yawns, and rolls across the bed, twisting herself up in the sheets. She smacks her parched mouth, grabs a glass from her bedside table, but sees it's empty. She looks out the window at the Tokyo skyline and speaks with an unmistakable Italian accent. Good morning, day. All right, hopefully we've improved this a bit and just honing down the detail and leaving out unnecessary description and getting to the meat of the scene. Again, I think we'd probably leave this scene on the cutting room floor, but assuming it's important, hopefully we've pared it down in a way that is making it easier to read through and picture, and also getting us to the point of her waking up much faster. And even though the short story aspect of this scene is not necessarily improved, it's still just a girl waking up in bed, we are moving through it much faster, and hopefully it's easier to picture. Okay, that does it for episode 5. If you'd like to submit your script for revision, you can email revisingthescript@gmail.com, and I'll take a look at it. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time.